it's really not just loaded with, specific questions and,
Well,
you
I'm
know.
not good at interviews, so I don't know what I should say.
Well, it's a conversation. It's really not an interview.
Okay.
We just want to hear more about your lives and, how you guys met and background. And
Didn't you tell him that already?
And
We haven't gotten there. Are we doing?
we just been talking fishing.
Have we?
so, and Bobby will lead the way.
He'll ask the questions and we'll answer the whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of, John will throw something in and you guys just,
I can tell you how we met.
Oh, sure. This is good.
well, let's just start off right there. You
Yeah,
tell
I'm
us when
rolling.
you're ready to go. Do you have enough cards?
I'm rolling.
This could be quite a story that comes out of this little.
It may take some time.
Yeah, and we'll, have to probably censor portions of it
Yeah.
later.
Cut it out.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So let's just start right there. You, Dick, you've been in the area your whole life, and then along comes this good-looking little young lady, Rosemary, and somebody just came into your life. Tell us a little bit about how you two got together.
Actually, we met each other at the University of Wisconsin. After World War II, I continued my education there, and Rosemary came along to start her education. And typically on Sundays, the frat houses and so forth, the dorms don't serve meals, and so we had to go to the cafeteria, which was a temporary building after World War II called T10, corner of University Avenue and Breeze Terrace, in the engineering campus. So my friend and I went down there, my fraternity brother and I went down there to have dinner, and here come two girls. One of them my friend knew, and then the other one was Rosemary. And my favorite line about this is that I met Rosemary at the cafeteria and have had to feed her ever since.
Oh, God.
Isn't that
Now, do you
naughty?
want to edit that or not?
Isn't that naughty?
That's not naughty.
That's a side of the story that's going to live forever. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's
Now, Rosemary, let's get your side of the
Well-
story. You're,
well, I was just young and innocent.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Richland Center, Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
I came from a family of 12. I'm the youngest. And we lived on the farm until I was 10, and then we moved to Richland Center. And then graduated from Richland Center and went to the university.
That's where she got her MRS degree.
That's what they said in those days, you know.
Do you know what an MRS
Tell
degree
us a
is?
little bit more about that.
That's Mrs.
Oh,
Not the MR, Mrs. Yeah, that's what they always teased us. So we met and we had a good time, like university students do.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about your mom and dad. What was your maiden name? And let's meet your family a little bit. Too.
Oh dear. Well, it was George and Nellie Spangler,
Spangler.
like the Star Spangled Banner only.
Okay.
And mother taught country school. Back in those days, they went a year or two at county normal and then they taught country school. So she was always after all the children to study and be good readers. If there was a minute we had, she would be cooking and you had to sit and read to her.
Oh, really?
So I think our family did it very well. We lost a brother in the service. I have a brother with a bullet in that close to the end of his spine.
Oh, boy.
Because he was in infantry and got shot in the rump. Sorry.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And
In the European campaign, or?
yes, and then we actually had 5 brothers in it once, and that was before that family. What's the name of that family?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That
They
after that
changed the
happened,
rules after the
changed the
yeah.
rules,
Yeah.
and my oldest brother was just not the age, but he got in. He was put into service, but then they released him because I think he was hard of hearing. So then they let him go. But the other brothers served in the India and the European theater of war, and the one that was killed was in India at the time.
India.
There
Big shock to the family, set the family back.
No, well, it was sad. It was very sad. He actually was the first one of Richland County that was killed. And then there were many others after that. And yeah, my sisters taught country school, and
Did you go to country school yourself then as a
oh
kid?
yes, we had to walk up the hill about a mile to the country school.
Was your mother your teacher at all, or?
No, she wasn't. She just at home at that time. By the time I came along, I went to school when I was 4 years old. They didn't have the rules then about being 5. I think she was just happy to get me out of the house after 12, after 11 others. And so.
What's your heritage? Are you?
Scotch, German, Irish, and English. So I'm kind of and then now the children are,
Well, now let me add to this. I'm pure Swedish.
he's pure Swede, and the children got mixed up.
My grandmother says, "Well, how is it that you couldn't find a good Swedish girl?
Oh boy.
Up here, you see.
Why do I have to go way down there to find a girl?"
Yeah.
So was that one of the comments? Now you've been haunted with that your whole life, then? Rose?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Like many other things. Come on in, whoever you are.
Was it
Doorbell
shit?
ring. No.
Okay.
So Rosie, we just found out that you're really a Duke's mixture, and you married the Duke.
That's right.
The
The
Duke,
king.
the king of Sweden here.
Yeah,
So.
King of Sweden. That's
So
right.
you've had with that hammer hanging over your head all these years, it must have been a contentious type of situation for raising properly, right?
That's right. To learn how to make Swedish meatballs.
Oh, all that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff,
Right.
you know.
Did you ever perfect the mixture or something?
No, I'm not.
Oh, she did too.
You got any inside information how to make the perfect Swedish meatball, or?
No, I don't. I just do the best I can.
We'd even sneak a recipe out of here too.
I don't know why we never had meatballs in my home, ever, until I was probably after we moved to town. Mother had gone someplace for dinner and had meatballs, and then she made meatballs. Isn't that strange?
Well, you
We
probably.
were on the farm. We just had hamburger and meat that you butchered and
Sure.
and eggs and.
Did your dad have a large farm?
Well, I assume it was good size. My brother wanted to get married, and so then my father moved. That's when we moved to town.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And he became a chief of police of Richland Center in time.
What year would that be?
Oh boy, I'd have to look it up because Richland Center was the last dry town in the state of Wisconsin, according to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after he retired that they voted it wet. And that was when, about the time that Platteville started the extension in Richland Center.
Okay,
So there is
okay.
at Platteville State.
Well, Prohibition ended in '33, didn't it, in Rosa?
Oh, but this had nothing to do with
No.
prohibition.
No.
Okay, so this is a.
Just one of those things that people finally, there was a country club that you could go get to drink if you belonged.
Mm-hmm.
And when the
Legion.
veterans come back, then the Legion, you could go out because they picked a piece of town, a little pie-shaped piece that was not in Richland Center. It was the
Okay.
county. They put a building there and they put
That's
their
how they
liquor
got
there.
around the rule then.
They got around the
Those
rules.
veterans were smart.
Yeah.
They were
Well-
used to it, you know, my brothers didn't drink or smoke until they went to, took service.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of them came back smoking.
So, so they came back and. Well, tell me, then you went to the university. What did you study when you were at the university?
Well, I was studying to be a dietitian.
Okay.
I always thought that would be nice, but
What do you do now?
well, I'm cooking for the whole crew again.
Got them all on a diet?
I've taught them all about it.
Yeah.
And Rosie operates the Sweet Sailing Candy Store.
Okay.
That's her project.
I started that
She started that 25 years ago.
25, whatever. Chautauqua is 25 or 26 years. We started the same year.
And they're on that.
Chautauqua did.
And that's in the old hardware store.
Yes.
Next to it,
Well,
Now.
no, originally started.
where the bookstore is now going to be.
Oh, okay, that's where you
Oh,
started.
that's
there.
where
We
you
started.
started.
That's where we
All right,
started.
yeah, okay.
Oh, I
And
see.
then when
Then we
We
moved to a hardware store.
Oh, so you were in business when the hardware store.
Yes.
Of course you were, because the hardware store hasn't been closed that long.
You must have bought that from the McCarty's?
Oh,
Yes.
wait, no, we bought the original building from Bill McCarty.
The sweet sale, the
Yes.
original sweet
Yes,
sale.
Yes.
and matter of fact, Bill said, he said it was gonna be a land contract, and the payment was a certain amount of money, and I says, Bill, that doesn't cash flow. The rent upstairs and the paying a reasonable amount of rent for the store downstairs. I says, you've got to extend the length of time for the land contract. And he said, well, Dick, I don't want to do that. And I says, why? He said, well, I don't want Mary to be burdened down with a land contract that isn't complete before I die. Well, pardon me, Bill's still alive today.
We interviewed him a little bit ago.
But I have a sequel to that.
Okay,
Bill had how many head of buffalo? 20?
Yeah,
Least.
somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay, I was up there one day, a couple of years ago, and I says, Bill, what's Mary gonna do with all these buffalo when you die?
oh God.
Ooh,
Did he relate to the zinger there?
Oh, he knew exactly where that was coming from.
Or that, okay.
But anyhow, we outgrew that store.
Yeah,
And the hardware store went up for sale at the courthouse steps. And we bought it on the courthouse steps in Washburn.
Oh,
the prior owner was maybe Bob Schoolon?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hardware Bob.
yeah, Hardware Bob, interesting story. I remember Leonard Johnson was there, and is that what they call the old Ryder building from years ago?
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was, they call it the Ryder block in the very, very early part of Bayfield, or in the earlier part of Bayfield, not the
Okay.
earliest part.
What I thought was ironic is that Ed Erickson had said that at one time he remembered there being a candy store in that building. And that's what we have in there currently.
Yeah.
Oh, is that
Along
right?
with many other things, but
We just did Mark Johnson the other day. We interviewed him, and his father was Leonard and Annette. And we kind of got the story on that building there, so we're not quite as smart as we, talking here. Hey, let's go back a little bit. You come from a big commercial fishing family, but then the Bodin organization went into a kind of like a multifaceted business. Tell us a little bit about the transition from catching a lot of fish and shipping a lot of fish to, the movement that came after that.
well, there were a lot of interesting twists to that. Of course, my father started fishing here in the town of Bayfield. Had his own fish dock and shipped his fish independently. And as we all know, as the fishery grew, you needed to have, everybody wants more return for their fish. And so he bought out the Gustafson Fish Company in Ashland for a few $100s.
Who was Gustafson? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
It's okay. I'm just curious.
And so he opened the store at 614 West 2nd Street, which was where the fisheries was located, across from the present post office.
All right, gotcha.
And he operated there for a number of years.
Sold retail there, and
Sold retail and then shipped his fish from there.
did he sell to like restaurants and stuff in the area too?
Oh yes.
So it was,
Actually, what actually made the Bodin family, the Elmer Bodin family success was the CC camps,
oh really?
because he had all the CC camp business for fish, and they trucked them to all the camps, and then also and shipping to the resorts and to restaurants and hotels in the area. He did very well. But eventually, the fisheries was collapsing because of the sea lamprey.
You're talking early 50s now?
Yeah.
All right.
And we weren't able to get enough fish from out of Alkena and Bayfield. We weren't get enough fish from Ellers and Cornucopia. We weren't able to get enough of our own production. And so we bought some fisheries up in Canada and Minnesota.
All right.
We had a fishery in Fort Francis, Ontario, one at Rainier, Minnesota, one at International Falls, and some buying stations in the area. And that fish all came to Ashland, and our fishery in Ashland was too small. And so consequently, we looked at the Keene fishery in Bayfield, which we purchased from them,
What year?
1960.
Yeah, rings a bell. The Apostle Islands left in 58, so.
Yeah, so it's those we're within a couple of years.
Yeah, well, I mean, Booth was on its way
Yeah.
out.
So then we brought our fish in there. We were just going gangbusters with fish. We were shipping Detroit, New York, Chicago, Milwaukee, all over the countryside.
You know, we're talking lake trout, whitefish, you're talking walleyes.
Walleyes, perch, northerns.
Herring in the good old days.
Well, we had herring here, of course.
I remember Kenny Johnson, those kids driving all the way to International Falls up there and coming back with walleyes, and
Yeah,
Kevin Cunningham, and you know that. I don't know if you remember all those guys or not, but
right.
Now, where was this building? Where was the fishery in Bayfield? The Keene.
Next to the Coast Guard station.
it's the Bodin Fisheries.
The
now.
one you have now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then we decided it was possible if we could get more of the Bayfield fish, that would be good. So we bought the Booth fisheries and consolidated everything into this one business. And then in order to pay the expense of owning this land, which was an expense, we opened up 2 gift shops down there. The herring shed was one of them, and the cooperage was the other. And we restored the cooperage, Booth Fisheries cooperage plant. They made barrels. We restored that with the idea that maybe the Historic Society would help us financially. And at that point, my brother had been killed in a plane crash, and things were, those were tough times.
Yeah, that was a bad period in life.
And I didn't want to saddle the kids down with this great big Booth cooperage building, and I went to City Hall and got a permit to tear it down, feeling that the real estate was far more valuable than the building. And in the meantime, the Historic Society came by. The man came in with a voucher for $56,000 or something to maintain the building, not to restore it, but just to hold it, because it was so historic.
Sure.
And I reached into my drawer, handed him the permit to tear it down, and I can still see his face. He was so disappointed. And I said, well, I haven't torn it down yet, but I have the permit to do it. Well, my daughter came home, that's Beta. My son Jeff became involved in the business. And they says, no, they didn't want it torn down.
Interesting story.
And I did not accept the $56,000 because it had all kinds of strings attached to it. What could happen around it, what development could happen around it.
By the time you open it, close it.
Architectural diggings, and it was something else.
A little overwhelming.
And so we restored it ourselves. And the building still stands.
Yeah.
And we made barrels. Reenacted the whole situation.
Sure. Do you have any film of that, or did you ever have everybody come in and watch that whole process?
I don't know.
I have no.
It seems to me that they did. I think after Bill he did that in his high school years and when he went to college, I think they did have a little film of that.
Yes.
Maybe the State Historical Society
Maybe.
made.
Yeah.
And we always laugh because my youngest son Bill, and I was talking to Bobby earlier about this, was the barrel builder from Bayfield. The bearded barrel builder from Bayfield. The burly bearded barrel builder from Bayfield. Bill Bodin, the burly bearded barrel builder from Bayfield.
Adding and adding.
I got it, didn't I?
Yeah.
You got it, you nailed her, you got it.
You got it.
That's for recorded as being what it really was.
Can we edit some of this? No, I'm serious.
Oh, that was good.
You want another
Yeah,
one?
we want
You
to see
want
the
another
lighter
one?
side of you there,
Do you want
brother.
another one?
Oh.
Yeah.
You might, but promise me you might want to edit it.
Well, we'll see.
And Bill was the sort of the spokesman, the orator about how the barrels were built and everything else about the
Put on
process.
the show.
And I said, Bill,
Interpreter.
how do you do that? He says, well, Dad, it's called the mushroom theory. Keep them in the dark and keep them full of bullshit.
Well, there was a real art to that too, though, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that whole corner there, that probably I can still see the lights of old Scotty Moran down there. There was Booth employed 6-8 Coopers a year.
Oh, they made.
In the old days, they salted all their stuff and off it'd go. And
We bought all our barrels from Booth for our salt fish operation.
you still got any of them barrels
wait.
around, or
Oh yeah, yeah, well, there are barrels around.
yeah?
We didn't mention the herring shed.
Yeah, let's
But
get into that a little bit.
now that
Well, we eventually sold the property to the Madeline Island Ferry Lines, which was a far better owner of that property because they needed space. They couldn't have the cars lined up on Highway 13 to get onto a ferry.
Yeah.
They had to have space. And we sold a lot of our property to Bayfield this may sound like that statement coming from me, but we thought it was better for Bayfield, for some people to own this property than for us to own it. And that's how come they own it.
Well, the Booth type of ideology where all the fishermen fish there anymore, that was kind of gone because you'd already picked up that group, and I know that Morris and Morris Patan and Soren Peterson picked up Ernie LaPointe's place, so they were out of there. And that place was, I could still see the old building and the old ice shed, the old slides. That was a part of the sale then too, and
That was, the kids got into a frenzy and burned it down, if you recall.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, the old ice house burned down and
unknown.
several of the buildings and part of the Quonset.
I'll have to share them with you sometime. I got some old photos of George Grant and all them guys weighing fish in the old building. I have so many fond memories of, like the Adolph place on there. I can still see that whole place
Yeah.
inside as a kid because my dad was a commercial fisherman
Yeah,
for years and years.
And wasn't it Art Grant was one of the Coopers?
Yeah,
I think Art actually helped us learn
pass the knowledge on a little
whatever
bit.
he could.
Yeah, I imagine Bill would come into a pretty blind cold there to begin with, unless you guys did it down here, which you may well have.
No, nobody made barrels except Booth.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things about making barrels up there was that when they put the staves together, they were just wood against wood.
Sure.
And if they leaked or didn't have a good seal, they put a cattail
Oh,
leaf in there.
all right.
And when it got wet, that cattail thing would swell up and seal it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it
No
is.
We never thought of that.
It was a modern, the old style of caulking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Nature had it.
sure, right in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, they used a lot of that stuff. That was a real interesting period of time just prior to that. When Nelson and Frank Patan came to town and they had their Coopers. So what you were carrying on was a tradition that went from the 1870s, 1850s even, with American Fur Company were the first, commercial fishermen
Yeah.
groups in the area. And then to have that being shown here was a real treat and time for the people to even watch that. You just don't see that anymore.
Well, and understand the psychology there was that you didn't salt all your fish. Now you had transportation. Now you could freeze fish. Now you could transport it. Now you could get it to the market. You didn't have to salt it and hold it. Of course, that was true. I don't care if it's salt pork or salt herring. It was the era of the time.
Well, that's why Booth come to town in 1883 is when the railroad got here. They'd cased the joint for a couple of years, A. Booth and Sons Company. They cased the area, and when that railroad hit town on October 12th, 1883, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Mr. Booth and Company they were buying some waterfront property from the Nelson and Frank Bataan people that were at NF Bataan over in that corner there. They had it figured out.
Yeah.
And that's when they started the camps on the island, one at Presqu'île, one at Stockton, one at one at South Twin and Sand Island. There were their spots where the pickup boats would go, and they shipped the barrels out there.
I don't know the name of the boat that originally was there, but the C.W. Turner
Yeah,
was in our era.
yeah, the
And
Turner.
then they built a new boat, which was called, don't know,
Well, the Apostles.
Apostle
The
Island.
Apostles took the place of the Turner.
Yeah. Well, do you know where the C.W. Turner is today?
Out here.
Yeah, it's sunk out in front of our dock. It's nothing but a rock pile and a few ribs and a stem showing.
I'll get your email address before we leave. I'll send you some beautiful photos of the Turner. That was a pickup boat, and my dad was at Presqu'île for years. The Turner was there. You know, he was a kid. He grew up at Stockton. So interesting period of time.
Well, another interesting point, when we bought out of Elkeen, they had the Penguin.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go around the islands to pick up fish. Of course, that did not go in the sale. Either the Penguin was sold earlier or later.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that? 3 eagles just flew by.
No, I didn't. I was listening to you.
And
Your history.
last year the Penguin came back to town.
Yeah, I see it.
And it's renamed.
I got
What's it called now?
Something
remember?
about boys. 2 boys, 3
two
boys.
boys or something like that. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Boyz.
Oh,
Well, my dad gave me the story with Howard Elmer owning the company, and how 1928, I think he had that place built as Bayfield Fish Company.
Yeah.
And Howard Elmer came up here, and he saw it was Otto Kuntz fishing, ponds along the shoreline. He's make a killing here, and with the fishing. But then the fishing went to heck, and it didn't turn out as well as what they wanted to. And then he sold to Keene. And I don't know who Keene is. Maybe you even know the people. I don't know them at all. But
A company out of Milwaukee.
yeah,
Still
yeah,
are.
yeah. Are they still there?
Yeah. Did you ever hear the story about Otto Kuntz? He fished up toward the patching grounds up that way. For some reason he was despondent. Price of fish wasn't good, couldn't catch fish, whatever. He said, I'm going to go drown myself. Did you hear this story?
I haven't heard it. I have to tell this story. Yeah,
No, it's maybe I have a different version of it.
maybe you got a better one. Yeah.
And he walks out into the lake. I think he gets up to his neck. He turns around and comes back, and they say, Otto, what's the matter? He says, the water's too cold.
Yeah. I heard Morris Bataan tell a similar story. He says, Otto Kuntz, he said, was going tough, and he got on the pile driver, and he looked at the hired man, and he says, I'm gonna kill myself. The hired man said, oh, Otto, you don't want to do that. Otto said, okay. He's gonna walk off the pile driver
And
drop
jump in.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, he's something else, I guess. My grandfather also built a boat for him. Do you remember the Willie? The boat, the Willie?
Oh,
My grandfather's got quite the ties to your family, actually, because he built the Clipper and he built the Beverly Ann.
oh, your grandfather,
Frank Mulkey.
Mulkey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my mother's dad. He was a boat builder in Bayfield and
Yeah.
built a boat a year for
Your mother was Marie?
Marie. Yeah. So I got a connection to the family here.
let's back up a little because we got some of this outside, but the wind was blowing, and I don't think the audio is going to be very good. About this Swedish background, why they came, who was your father, grandfather, the names.
And then your immediate family too.
And then the immediate family too.
Okay.
Talk about your kids and,
Well, my grandfather, whom I never knew because he was gone before I came along, came from Sweden in the late 1800s, like most of this area, and settled in Ashland and did both carpentry and fishing. And he did his fishing from a sailboat, a Mackinac, one mast, one little sail, and had a fish camp on the outside of Long Island, which was later referred to as Swedeville, because there were half a dozen or more little fishing shacks out there, until just recently the last one was owned by Butch Severson, and it's been now turned back to wilderness. And then realizing that living in Ashland was not the most convenient way to get to Long Island, they moved out here to the town of Bayfield, below what is currently now the Madeline Island Historic Marker. And he had 3 sons, Elmer, my father, Oscar, J.O. Bodin, the county treasurer, and Adolph. And Adolph fished and farmed, and Oscar was county treasurer and fished, and my father fished for a living. And my father had 2 sons, myself and my brother Roger. And Roger had 3 children, Wendy, Debbie, and Bob. And I had 5 children. Rosie said, "We promised me 6." But she said, "I had your mother-in-law for a while." that counts for one.
Yeah.
So I had my oldest daughter Bonnie, who was living in Florida, and my oldest son Jeff, who runs the fishery currently. My daughter Beta, who is the boss of all of us, is the president of Bodin's Inc. And I have a son in Milwaukee and a son in Burnsville, Minnesota.
Okay.
So-
Their names are?
Yep.
Bill
Tom.
and Tom.
And Tom, okay.
And I have 2 grandchildren at the University of Wisconsin, and a third one going there. That's Alex and
Tom.
Chelsea and Matt. And I have a
They're
daughter.
the children of who?
Tom, the son is Alex. He's the
Their only son.
big tall kid, 6'6", drafted by the university to be on their track team, but he liked football better, and couldn't cut the football unless he changed his major. And he said he wasn't, unless he changed, yes, if he changed his major, he said, "I'm not going to change my major just to play football." So he had a very good conviction there. And I have now I don't know where the question goes.
Grandchildren.
Yeah, Chelsea is my youngest son, Bill, the bearded Bayfield builder.
Okay. Barrel builder.
Yeah,
Chelsea is.
she's in Madison, and his son is going next year. He's just graduating from high school.
This year.
And I have a granddaughter also in Bozeman, Montana. That is Beta's daughter, Hannah. And then Beta also has a daughter, Lucia, here in Washburn High School.
Okay,
So those are our 7 grandchildren.
great.
Oh, wait, now those are 5 of our grandchildren. I have 2 adult grandchildren. Eric, who works at the fishery with his father, and Scott, who has a construction company locally.
Okay. And that's Jeff's children.
Those are Jeff's children.
Yeah, I know those 2 children. So.
Yeah.
We got the family down now pretty good.
did we get your whole family?
Yeah, started
Yeah,
out.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Tell us some fun stories about being in the Bodine fishery. You probably had peaks and lows and fun things, and tell us about some of your favorite fishermen that you had to work with over the years.
Well, no, I'm gonna deviate from that question. Bobby, you know all about being in a fish boat during herring season, choking herring. You know it's a messy job. You're up to your knees or deeper in fish. There are eggs squirting on the hot stovepipe. It's just a mess. Well, you saw most of the herring was sold to mink ranches. And we had a mink rancher that came into the boat, just waiting for us to finish up so he could get loaded. And then he left, and one of the ladies in the boat, the herring chokers, said, "Oh my God, did he stink?" We all thought that was great because we all stunk, but he had a different smell.
Yeah.
When you fish right out in the bay here, I bet.
We went
Or
out,
did you go to Russell Bay and stuff like
we
that?
fished out on the south side of Madeline Island.
Yeah. In the old days, there was quite a few herring right out in front of the joint here, wasn't
As
there?
the season ended, we ended up in front here.
And that was, and
That
what
was
would
it.
you get in a day's catch in them days?
Well, we had 5 ton was the maximum we could handle.
So,
And when it
Boat
got
could
down
handle.
to 1,000, 1,200 pounds, it wasn't worthwhile.
who used to pick fish for you and who worked with you on the herring season? Tell me a little bit about those bad boys and girls. Rose, did you get your hands on
Rosie did.
Nell and I went down there night after night, and often it was at Thanksgiving time,
Yeah.
and we choked herring on the sheds. Nell and I both. And
If you were
Came
married to a Bodine,
You
you
had-
choked herring.
Yeah, there's no getting out of that.
One of our mainstay, for the fellows that worked here, of course, was Wally Local, Ernie Bergman.
And
Yeah.
Bergman?
Ernie, yes.
Ernie, okay.
And
was his mother's brother.
Mike Sifko,
Oh yeah, Mike, sure.
who had the Onion River Tavern.
Yeah, and Dolly.
One of my favorite stories about Mike Sifko, it was cruel. Of course, Mike had a bar, he and Dolly, and oftentimes they would be working till what, 1 o'clock in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
And Mike had to be here at the dock at, let's say, 8 o'clock. And we'd leave the boat, Ernie, Wally, Mike, and myself, which was unusual to have 4 guys. But we would go to lift our nets outside of Long Island, and the minute we left the dock, Mike would lay down on the floor, fall asleep. And we'd slip over there and tie a rope to his ankle and tie the other end to something stable. And the minute the engine slowed down, Mike knew he had to get up and up to the bow and get the bow line to tie the boat to the ponnet stake. He would tumble flat on his face because he was tethered to this rope.
Oh,
He would never, ever remember to not check before he ran.
every time he was fair game.
Yeah.
We could catch him anytime, every time we wanted to.
How many punnets did you guys fish in the old days there?
About the maximum we had was 12.
Were they deep nets or the 40 footers, 30
The
footers,
deepest we had was 60.
60s? Where was that, like off the point of a Long Island then, or?
Off of the outside of Long Island and down on the west side of Van Tassel's Point
Oh, down that way.
and out in front here.
Yeah, Morris had that ponnet up in front of, I always call it Flower Pot Jane's there.
Well, yeah, he was close to where we used to fish.
Yeah, in that area there, so down this way.
Yeah.
Did you go into Ashen Harbor now?
No, that's been closed forever.
You see, in the real early days, that was wide open fishing in
Well,
the 1870s and stuff.
yeah.
I just wondered if your dad and guys were into there a little bit.
I think my dad, yes, my dad used to fish fike nets in there,
Yeah.
but it was very hard to fish nets in there because, believe it or not, the nets would rot from the acid from DuPont.
Oh, down in front of DuPont
Yeah.
here. Really?
So you couldn't do it.
You fished all that old cotton,
Well, yeah, it was, yeah,
cotton hearts and lead and
Yeah.
pots and.
yeah, it just couldn't hold up in the water.
Was your dad-
DuPont wouldn't like to have heard that, but
Yeah, that's the truth. I remember as a kid driving by there, you see that orange water coming out of the side of the place there, so you knew, yeah, no, something was up. Was your dad a good man with the needle? Was he a good mentor and stuff like
Well,
that? Did you kids learn all that stuff, or?
yeah, Wally, Ernie, my dad, everybody had to make and repair it. Never made, I wouldn't say we never made the nets, but we had to repair the nets.
Yeah, you were mending in the fields a lot, and
Yeah,
yeah, you got in the tar. You get into the tar and the e-oil and all that stuff.
I remember as a kid, and we were playing some kind of jungle game. We caught our cat and put it inside the fike net. It had just been tarred, sitting up drying. And then in the process of the day, the thing got hot and fell over on top of the cat. That poor cat was covered with tar. And in our stupid kind-heartedness, we started to get some gasoline to clean the tar off.
Oh.
The poor cat was just suffering from, I have no idea if the cat survived or not. I have no memory of that.
In the Beverly Ann, what type of an engine was in there? I'm kind of curious.
Oh, that would have been an Adolph's.
Little Chrysler Crown in there or something like
This
that?
had a Chrysler Marine.
Yeah. So they were all gas engines then, and
Yes.
yeah. Any boats of yours have the old Cullenberg in them at all, or?
No, the only Collenberg that I know is William G.
Yeah.
You could hear that thing start up.
It's
You
kind of
hear
fun, yeah. Kind of fun to listen to you tell a story about your grandfather and the old Mackinaws, because the first gasoline engine boats didn't get here until 1906, and old John Peterson at La Pointe over there was building boats, and he inserted them in there first. So after 1906, I'm guessing those boats. When you said I'm alone, my dad told me about that boat. I forget who owned it after that. Was that Les Cornell owned it, or the La Pointe brothers or somebody? The I'm alone, but I've heard that name before, so that was kind of fun listening to you tell that story.
And I have no idea where that name came from. I'm alone.
I'm gonna ask my dad, and I'll get that information to you. He knows that story. It was some old fisherman that had that boat fished by himself.
Well, it would make sense, but
Yeah. But that was one of the earlier ones. I'll ask him. I'll see him tomorrow. Get that story straight for you. He remembers stuff like that.
Rosie, when in the fishing business, aside from the picking herring, did you have a role in it, or what were you doing at this time when he's doing all this stuff?
Probably raising children.
You had a few.
I think the only other time, well, Dick took me out fishing once because I didn't know how to fish. And I caught a fish, and he told me it was a white fish. But behind my back, he was laughing at me because it was a sucker.
Oh.
And I'm showing everybody my white fish, and he's laughing behind my back.
It was
That wasn't
right.
very nice.
Oh,
one of
yeah,
these
right.
big scale mullets,
Yep.
you know, you could get by with that. It was,
Yeah.
I call him the old white sucker.
yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching them make ice down here and put it in the ice house. And
Well, you used to help keep the ice in the channel.
yeah, we used to work it. And
Sure.
then what
What
When
did
I
that?
think back
what did
of
that
it-
involve?
part?
What did that involve?
Well, it involved pushing it up the channel so that the next guy could push it on. And then later on, after in the winter time or later, because there wasn't refrigerators sufficient at that time, and I had a couple of children at the 2, maybe 3 by that time, and people would stop here at the door and want ice for the ice boxes.
Okay.
And when we were first married, we had ice boxes in the cottages. So I had to leave and go down and brush off the sawdust and get the tongs and get them for a quarter.
Oh.
For a quarter!
Yeah,
When you think about it,
yeah.
you know,
Times were tough in them days.
it was tough.
Hey, what was it like raising kids in the 60s?
Oh, it wasn't like it is today.
Probably easier.
It was easier. I mean, they played, they had neighbors, the Sneed boys and Randy were over here, and they had their own football games and baseball games out in the yard, and they went fishing and they did lots of things that I didn't know about, of course, because I
All of
was.
our children were angels.
Yeah, they took boat and they went out to the islands and places I didn't even know they were gone. They just took off, you know, as children would do. Well,
Adventurous.
Where we're up mangling sheets from the cabins because at that time they didn't.
When you ever you needed an extra hand or
They
something,
were
they were
gone.
gone.
They were gone. Yeah,
Typical
out playing.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good kids
Now, did you guys start the cabins, or was that
My father
before?
did.
Your father did.
during a CC.
We used to have 9 units down here,
9 units,
and now we have 4.
right.
And I say that's 4 too many.
Yeah. You're carrying on the tradition too.
Yeah.
Well,
They're
Well-
here. You can't tear. You aren't going to tear them down.
Mm-hmm.
They're in very excellent condition.
Keeps them that way.
They keep me from playing in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So
What
well,
do people?
you said that you made a mention of the CCC camps. Describe, is that, why were those cabins built then?
oh well, that's how actually the very first cabin was built. Back in the 30s.
Yeah,
When the Brinks camp out of Washburn started up, the Major Eek was the commander, and he wanted a place for his family to stay.
Mm.
And my father says, well, I'll build a cottage for that. And so he built this cottage, and the Eek family, Mrs. Eek and her 2 sons, lived there all summer.
Okay.
And I don't recall if he did or not. He probably came and went, but I'm sure he spent most of his time out at the camp. And that, my father said, well, that's a pretty cool deal. And so they kept building more and more and more.
That was kind of a forerunner to the
so this would be in the 30s?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Did you tell them about the charging 10 cents to swim in the quarry?
Well, Bobby referred to the swimming place. He used to charge a dime to swim in the quarry.
Really?
I still have the sign in the pole barn,
No kidding.
the original sign.
And you moved from the house up there down to the cottage during that summer so that they could keep an eye on everybody. You know.
Yeah, that's quite the deal. We lived in the house up where Beta lives now, and then we had a summer cottage, 500 feet farther, closer to the lake.
When you went on vacation, you went all 500
Oh
feet.
wow! For the summer.
And didn't you say when we were down at the quarry there was a diving board and everything down there?
Oh yeah, back in the 1926, they had the first world's log rolling tournament in there.
They did?
Yes, I should have shown you.
I have a chart.
Where do you know where it is?
I think
I
so.
know where it is too.
Oh,
We have an original chart.
Oh,
Wow.
great.
I think it's still here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's actually it's a reproduction of the original, but it's perfect.
So they had the log rolling championships there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, there it is.
a huge event.
When they say that the log rolling contest started in
Hayward.
Hayward, it's not true.
Okay.
It started at Bodin's Resort.
There's
And-
positive proof of it.
Yes, and this gentleman lived right down the road,
Okay.
George Glazier.
Glazier,
Okay.
and he was the champion log
Indian
roller.
Opera, Indian Pageant Park. So this is, the Indian pageant was 24 through about 27. So they must have had
Yes.
worked out a deal together.
Yep. I say 24 to 28.
I think
Yeah,
you
because
had,
they- Right.
They had this more than 1 year.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I think it was in
So it ran in.
Marta, at
part of that-
26, you had on some of them.
That was a part of that whole package deal. Then
Yeah.
they sold passes to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of the story.
Uh, we have more of those, don't we?
Yes?
Why don't you give that to Bobby?
Okay. I'm gonna give them up. Probably
Let
do.
him do with whatever you want to do.
I can
You have
pass
what?
that on. I'll give that to BHA.
Yeah,
I think.
If Beta hasn't already done it,
if she hasn't.
I don't know.
Maybe she has.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't personally. I haven't seen this before, so very nice. Yeah. Okay.
The diving board was
Stevens,
still there
yeah.
when we were married.
The bleachers.
Well, they were still a diving board, and
Oh,
then
yes.
they took them down.
Yeah, well, it
What year
became-
did you guys get married?
No.
Tell 'em.
What year was that?
Tell them, Dick.
I'm guessing 1949.
Good boy.
You win the prize today.
Yeah.
Boy, but I had to work on that.
Hey, Dick, let's go back a little bit though too. I know that you graduated from the school out here. Tell me, did you go to Washburn High School? And then tell us a little bit about your service. I know you were in the Navy too.
No, that Roger was Navy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just fill me in on
Well,
that period of time.
as I said, the Houghton School was 1 through 8, and I did that in only 9 years. But I did better in high school. I finished that in 4.
Okay.
And Gloria Maitland was the valedictorian, I was the salutatorian. I tested into Army Specialized Training because I graduated in 42
Okay.
at the height of the war. And went into specialized training, at the Carnegie Tech for a short period of time. And then went into the 95th Infantry Division
Oh, okay.
and shipped out of the coast, East Coast, on a luxury liner, I don't remember the name, and landed in England. Eventually made our way to Southampton and crossed the English Channel to Normandy Beach. And then made all of our way from there all the way to the Rhine River.
So
And
were
we
you
sat-
at the invasion of Normandy?
No, I was
Okay.
there after.
Okay.
And went across the English Channel on the Leopoldville. It was a Belgian luxury liner. And
The Leopold line.
well, it was even called the Leopoldville.
Oh, wow.
And it was torpedoed. Not when we were on it, thank God. And it's still sitting in the bottom of the English Channel, right off Normandy Beach.
Oh, wow.
So I went into the infantry and spent 13 days in a foxhole on the front line. And
Where was
then,
Foxhole at?
pardon me?
Where were you located at that time? Foxhole was,
On the front line somewhere between France and Germany.
okay.
And the sergeant came one morning before it was daylight and wondered if I was in my hole. You know, like where else would I be?
Yeah, like I'm gonna run around out there.
But he knew he should be very careful because you don't do that to anybody in a foxhole because somebody's got
Shoot you.
an M30 hanging aimed
Well-
right at him, an M1. So he says, "You're wanted down in the headquarters." And I thought that something was wrong at home. And so I went down there, and down there was just like you see in MASH, a bigger hole with some logs over the top of it and sod and stuff. And there was a Jeep there from headquarters, and I was asked if I wanted to volunteer to operate boats for the engineers.
Oh, I see, okay.
And I said, yes,
Out of the foxhole.
get me out of this foxhole.
Yeah.
They had gone through the service record of 15,000 men. And I don't even remember ever mentioning when I was enlisted what I had done.
Yeah.
And of course I wrote, commercially fished, ran boats and motors. They found 3 guys. One was Skurlock from the West Coast, myself, and
Bill. No.
yes, Bill, from Indiana. And so I got to the river, the Moselle River, which is, everybody knows about the Moselle, if you know anything about Europe, and made the very first successful crossing on the Moselle.
kind of boats did you have, them ducks or something like that, or?
Storm boats, assault boats.
You're
They hold
sinking.
hold about a squad of men,
Okay,
12 guys. 50 some horsepower motors that were on tripods. They were so heavy you couldn't lift them. It was winter, November, December. And Bill Creviston. Thank you. And earned a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star.
that's great.
And survived.
I'm here.
Yeah.
You're here, yeah.
Against all odds, maybe, eh?
Lots of nightmares though.
Oh, I'll bet,
And,
yeah.
And the interesting thing is, my foxhole was safe. So when I ran the boats, I was the target.
Then what did you got?
You bet. And both, and the three of us survived. The original boat operators didn't. So we're very lucky.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That wasn't one of those posh duties that you get to run the colonel around the camp.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because after we ran out of rivers, that was my job.
What it was? You
He
graduated.
graduated up to driving a Jeep for the big shot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you meet any of the big boys over there at all?
No.
Interesting story. So you got out of the service, then I take it. What year did you get out of that?
40,
45.
So in 45, you're on your way back home. You wind up getting married in 49. We know now.
I finished my education down at the University of Marketing,
Yeah.
and brought home this little sweetheart of mine.
yeah.
Yeah.
61 years this year.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yep.
Boy.
Well, that's a great, wonderful story.
Yeah.
I wanted to fill in those little bits and pieces there. There's obviously a ton of other stuff in there too, but
Well, I was just thinking, one thing that we omitted was that during the lamprey time and the fishing was just gone, we had Ernie and Wally working for us. Mike had a job with his tavern, and we built Bodins on the lake,
oh, yeah, on the waterfront there.
and to sell boats and motors.
Now, when was that,
That was
roughly?
exactly 50 years ago.
It was?
No, it's a little bit more
50.
than that. It's in 1957.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
That's when
53.
that waterfront property got developed.
Yeah. And Wally was the mechanic, and
What
Ernie,
was Wally's last name?
local. Another long old family. And Ernie worked for E.I. DuPont then. So everybody had a slot.
And Ernie who?
Ernie Bergman, which was my mother's maiden name. She was a Bergman.
Okay.
I'm sorry, John, that how many years you've been here? 15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
But
gotta
you
be
see,
here.
Well,
for
when you're
posterity,
talking, yeah,
for posterity, we've got to have all this
Something like
information.
that.
yeah.
Something.
It's old stuff to all, us, but
Yeah.
to the people in the future, and say, Ernie, who now?
Yeah, who's Ernie? And that business grew and grew because it was in the boom of the boats and motors
Yeah.
and so forth.
Evan
And
Root finally had a product that start.
Yeah.
well, GM's OMC, Outboard Marine Corporation.
Okay.
So
And who ran that business?
I did.
You did.
I was out of work,
Uh-huh.
and we had the fisheries in Bayfield in Ashland. My brother was running it until it got so big he couldn't handle it anymore, and then I went with them to Bayfield to help, and then it was managed by others, family members, and we
The Ashland
Yeah.
store.
Yes,
Yeah, I can about remember when you come. Well, after Roger was killed in that airplane crash, then all of a sudden, I think, didn't you come back to the Bayfield organization? Or was that later?
I had started being there earlier,
Okay.
and fortunately it had gotten broken in,
Yeah, he knew the ropes a little.
So, but those were tough years because that was the year also that the salt shed burned down.
I remember that, yeah.
What year was that? You remember?
Oh, the
70,
year that Roger, 79.
79.
Yeah.
is that when that salt shed burned down?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that thing like yesterday.
Because Nell's been a widow
For 30
more
years.
years than was married. She was married for 30 years, and
widow
she's
since-
been a widow for 31. There go the geese.
Oh, they're landing in the yard. Just see 'em?
Yes, they are.
Didn't they land? Those Canadian quackers.
So then we closed that store, as you know, 2 years ago, because the family. How do I gracefully put this? The
Yes.
family bought out the shares of Nell's family.
Okay,
And so Nell's family owned that property,
okay.
and along with other considerations,
Yeah, okay.
that was taken care of.
Yeah,
But that was a crime to close that store because that store was profitable. But we had to close it to get the money to buy their shares of stock out, and also to sell the inventory and the fixtures and so forth.
at that point in time, you sold everything from, it had gone from outboards to, and that type of thing, to
Gifts and
bikes and
souvenirs, the bikes, and
Yeah.
you were selling
Bikes.
everything.
Yeah, we got out of the marine
skiing
business.
equipment, I remember that.
We got out of the marine business
Skiing.
when the first oil embargo started many years ago. When the price of gasoline went, what did it go to, $5 or something like that?
Oh,
That's where I got my first Schwinn bike.
yeah.
My grandmother bought me that bike out of
Yeah.
that store over there.
Yeah.
Used to sell Schwinns.
We did a volume on bicycles.
The Schwinn Speedster.
It matches you, Bobby.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
it did then. No.
Well, and back to the fishery in Bayfield. I know it's gone down the chain. Could you trace that in terms of who was running it? You got in there.
Well, okay, when we got in there, Russ Valentine was the manager for Keene. I can't go farther back than that.
Right.
And then my brother managed it.
Roger.
Yes. Until he was killed in the plane crash, along with many of the local guys. And then I managed it until I retired because I was having heart trouble. And
When was that?
Still, forever.
No, I mean, when did you retire? I know.
when I was 62, and I was born in 24, you do the math.
62 and you're
I'm not a mathematician.
So anyhow,
quite a few years ago. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
yeah. And now my son Jeff, which is the fourth generation, is managing the fishery end of the business. Now you got to realize he's not the boss. His sister Beta is the boss,
She's the president of the.
and
You have the family
She works-
corporation.
yes,
But
and she
she's
takes care of the various retail stores and the fisheries.
Uptown.
The overseeing part of the operation.
So what's all part of the corporation now?
Currently, well,
Yeah.
not as much as it used to have. The Brownstone Center,
All right.
the Sweet Sailing, the Bodin Fisheries, and a lot of real estate. The trucking company was terminated not too many years ago because the terminal burned down,
Yes, I remember that.
and 3 of the semi-tractors went up with it, along with a couple of automobiles and all the parts and pieces and tools. And the corporation elected to say, let's get out of the business. And they had several trucks still on the road, and had some 20-some trailers parked around the countryside. So they simply liquidated it. Best thing they ever did. With the price of fuel the way it went, insurance, hard to get good drivers. Yeah, that was a nightmare.
Yeah, didn't work.
And we had sold off the Booth property, which we had 2 gift shops in, to the Madeline Island Ferry Line.
Sure.
We also operated the Bayfield Mercantile, which was a gift shop on the main street.
Right across from the bank there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, we had the store in Ashland. So at one time, we were dealing with 6 retail outlets,
Yeah, that's a handful.
and that was a handful.
Yeah, that is, unless you get, and if you get to the next level of corporate business, then you're in a different world too, so.
But it was important at the time that this all happened, because it all started when the lamprey and the fishing started going down. Then we started spreading our thoughts in other directions.
Necessity was the mother of invention.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's okay.
and our decisions were good.
Yeah, they panned out. Good. So, John?
So the Brownstone Center, you didn't ever have any interest in the movie theater. I know it was a movie
No.
theater before then.
Yeah, I bought that on the street from Julian.
Nelson?
Who,
Nelson?
who owned it?
Brub Locksmith.
What?
Was it Brub?
Yeah,
No.
Lawrence Locksmith?
Lawrence.
Lawrence,
Lawrence Walksmith. Lawrence was walking down the street, and I happened to be coming by, and I said, "Lawrence, what are you going to do with the building here? Because it was leaking. It was." He said, "Oh, I'm going to sell it." I said, "What do you want for it?" I think he said $40,000. And I says, "Okay, I'll buy it." I don't know why it is. Why?
Why?
That's history that I don't know why I thought that was a good deal. Well, I guess it was.
I wanted it bad enough, it was a
Yes.
good deal.
And I think I put $120,000 into it to make it what it is today. It's
Sure.
a beautiful building.
It is.
And I think is one of the best moves I made. Well, it was not the best move that the corporation ever made, because we bought the Otto L. Keene Company. Would you like to guess what we paid for that?
For Otto Alkeen?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, throw me a figure.
80 grand?
24,000.
24.
And we didn't have that 5 years, and we paid $28,000 to fix the dock.
Oh boy. What do you think the future of the Bodin Corporation is at this point in time? Wild guess.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
We have the most healthy lake that I've ever seen in our life. The production out here excels every expectation of anybody alive. It has been just absolutely awesome.
Phenomenal amount of
And
whitefish and
you hear that? You don't hearing it just from me, are you?
no, I heard from Craig and
It's
everybody.
coming from everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Herring is good. Lake trout is bountiful. Whitefish is super abundant.
Yeah.
Smelt are getting stronger, though I don't think they'll ever be what they were.
It's hard to say.
Well, not if you got salmon and lake trout in the lake.
Yeah.
They're going to keep that down. And they're even, as you were saying, that even the whitefish are starting to nibble on them.
Yeah.
So,
And nibble or gorging.
so you asked what the future of the fisheries? I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And basically the fisheries is more, basically the corporation is more the fisheries than it is anything else.
It still is that.
After Roger was dead, was killed in the fisheries, there were tough times there. And I told Jerry Hall, the president, the manager of the bank, I said, "Jerry, if there's the last thing I do before I get out of here is to diversify this corporation from fish," because it was 90% fish. And we diversified the corporation to where it was like 48% fish.
Okay.
And the rest of it were other activities. So
you're gonna have the people power from within the family, or you know, Beta's gonna retire one of these days, and you got any young Bodins coming up to fill in the holes?
I really don't think so.
It's hard to say what'll happen.
it's kinda young.
We told our children to, for the most part, you know, not everybody can make a living here. And that, hey, find your slot in life, and they did.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but no, I don't foresee that we will be in the fishery business.
Forever.
No, another generation.
I'm kind of looking at your grandsons there, you know, Jeff's boys. I figured one likes, you know, being in the carpentry business, and that's fine. And I don't know.
Well, Eric is the only one working up there, and I don't know that that's his
That's his-
interest.
Yeah. It's a timing thing too, you know.
Yes, right. It
Well,
just-
is he mature enough at the point in time that the company feels good to say, okay, now you're ready, you know, Jeff, what do you really want to do now?
Yeah.
Because I know Jeff's got to be, what, 56, something like that?
Yeah, it's up there.
Another 10 years, another 12 years, he'll probably want to say, geez, Dad, I'm getting a little tired of this here, and
Yeah.
somebody's got to pick up the pieces.
And it's a mistake to think that because you have a family business, that a family member, next generation or whatever, is the right person for
Yeah.
that job. We're all built differently.
Sure. Try as hard as you may to groom them. It doesn't always
No,
come out the way you planned.
if they have no interest,
Yeah.
they'd probably rather be a farmer
Yeah,
or a
it's fine.
fireman or something.
But it would be the end of an era, wouldn't it? If-
Could be.
Well,
If-
Could
if-
be in
not-
time, not yet, but
Not yet, but I mean at some point.
Well, an era for the Bodins being in the fish business.
That's me,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Oh,
But
yeah,
not
'cause
for
it will
the
never be the end of the
fishing.
fishing business.
No, no, I'm
Yeah,
talking about in the
right,
family.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
yeah.
Well, then who are we to talk about that?
we don't know.
It's always fun speculating. That's part of it. John, I gotta start to
Well,
think about going to here.
you've had a rich life here, you two,
I had a good life.
and
It was
We've worked hard.
it was all
Yeah.
hard work.
yes, it wasn't handed to you on the
No.
platter, was it?
Nope.
Yeah.
Many hours.
Cottages are a lot of work in the summer, but as we say, it helps pay the taxes on the lakefront property.
Yes, right.
I don't think we could afford to live here if it wasn't for the
Maintaining the
Resort.
resort.
Yeah, that income there is.
well, the income is helpful,
And
but
maintaining.
to be able to write off the real estate tax is an expense.
Oh,
Yeah.
my.
Right.
It's tough.
This waterfront property is expensive stuff, man. You're going through that up in Bayfield all the time.
Oh, boy.
The property is worth a lot more than this resort's worth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The
Oh,
value is in the land. It's,
I mean, we're stupid. No, we're not stupid.
No.
We're fortunate that we have it.
Kids love to come home, and that's the important thing.
yeah, you're fine for now.
Yeah, and you haven't chopped it up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got the family within reach here. Right, on the
Cute
same-
story about Beta when she went to college at River Falls. Her roommate was from Washburn, and every morning Beta would get up and look out the window. And this went on, and finally her roommate said, "What do you do that for every day?" "Well, I have to look out to the weather to see what I should wear today."
Yeah.
Because she was in the corner bedroom upstairs, and she'd look out. Well, now is it going to be cold? Is it going to be warm? What do I wear?
Well,
You
you
tell
live
by the
along
little frost
She
in
could
the
tell by
window to the wind that's blowing.
Which way the wind is blowing, and all the
when you
conditions.
live along the lake here,
You learn that.
you check the weather.
That's the first thing you do.
Yeah, those are old skills that passed on generation to
Yeah.
generation.
So I'm sure she always will.
I have a story over in Ashland. Some tourists stopped over at the store at Bodin's on the lake. And I was talking to them, I have no memory what it was about. It was so hot. Oh, it was hot. And they were commenting about how hot it was, you know. And I said, and I looked out over the lake and it was just blue coming this way towards you. And I said, well, I tell you what, I'll do a little dance. And I'll see if I can't cool it down. I did some kind of little stupid little jig. And I said, and within a minute, that breeze came off the lake.
Yeah, around 15 degrees.
I wondered, what is this with this guy?
Well, you know every mood and
Yeah.
and shape of this area, don't you? Yeah, for over the years.
He does.
Yeah, I do get the feel for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've got a beautiful spot here.
The kids, I remember one year, the kids went swimming down at Bayfield Park. And that wind came in, and it was about, it was warm, and they went in, and they came out, that wind came across. We sit here and watch it come.
Yeah.
You can see it dance across the water.
Yeah, you can see it, you know it's coming. But
That
people
east
don't
wind
know.
can be nasty.
Yeah, it's fun.
Of course, and then you got the big hill here, the northwest must knock it down a little bit, but you're kind of, you got an open shot down here too.
Oof.
Northeast is right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a million.
Okay.
I
Yeah, thanks so much, you guys. It's been
Oh,
great.
you're
I could sit here for another 2 hours, but